What is up, IDP Army? What is up, fantasy football fanatics? It's your man Jordan Reigns at 50 Shades of Drunk. Welcome into the show today. We are talking all fantasy football, and today we are going to be emphasizing or checking out the top 24 linebackers for 2023 IDP Fantasy Football Rankings. Go check out the first video. Rep my Steelers today, black and yellow. You know what it is. But go check out the first video. We went over the top 12 linebackers we're looking at as linebacker ones going into the 2023 season. So go check that out. But thank you for being here. And like I said, we're going to go over our top 24 linebackers. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about a little bit of news because camp has been going on. So I briefly want to touch on some of those things. So to lead this whole discussion off, in my opinion, is Jalen Ramsey. Okay, Jalen Ramsey, newly minted cornerback for the Dolphins, went down yesterday in camp with a knee injury. Looks like he had meniscus surgery, and he is going to be out until at least December. So that's a big hit to the Dolphins defense. It's going to be a big hit to some IDP managers. Jalen Ramsey has been an elite IDP asset the last two seasons at the defensive back position. I think he's been a DB1 and a DB2 each of the last two seasons. So going to be missing him. He really fit in with the vibe that they're really trying to build and grow down there in Miami. So hate to see that, but that's going to be, pretty relevant. Other news, we had Trey Hendrickson. He got another extension with the Bengals. So he is going to be there still as their premier pass rusher. I'm going to try to stick to defensive news right now too, just because we all know Burrow. I don't even want to get into that, but Damar Hamlin. Sorry. I know, for IDP managers, we need to keep an eye on him. He has been cleared to play, and it's easy to forget. He's going to be a valuable, meaningful asset for IDP fantasy, assuming he gets back out there and really does get back after it. Micah Hyde getting older, Jordan Poyer getting older. Don't let the story overwhelm you or make you forget, he's a stud. So get him on your fantasy rosters if he's not on there right now. Even if somebody's like, oh, Damar Hamlin, he's a backup safety, whatever they want to believe or feel about it. Make sure that he gets on your team. So I wanted to bring him up because he's fully cleared. He is practicing. Let's see here. Other things I wanted to talk about before we jump into, again, the top 24 linebacker rankings, going over our linebacker twos. We're going to go over linebackers 13 through 24. This show is going to be, brought to you by our sponsors. Our new show sponsor is the Sleeper app. Here, we'll let you hear from them. If you've ever wanted to get into the ultimate IDP index, all right? It's our flagship product. It's got dynasty rankings. It's got tiered rankings for IDP players. It's got production profiles, all sorts of really cool stuff like that. Good for research and good for drafting. We have an awesome opportunity and a major announcement, okay? Very, very proud to officially announce here on the channel, on the podcast feed, that we are officially partnered with Sleeper, the Sleeper app. That's right, for the 2023 fantasy football season. Use the promo code POSSUM on your first time deposit. They will deposit match you up to $100. And listen, here's the kicker. If you do that, I will get an email sent to me that said that you use our code or our link, which is in the description. I will give you the ultimate IDP index for the rest of the season, the 2023 season, totally for free. All you got to do is go sign up, use the code POSSUM or the link in the description of the podcast or the video. I'm going to give you the ultimate IDP index for the rest of the year for free. All right, the reason I wanted to play that early is because last time I told y'all I would play a little bit of a promo for the index at the end of the show, and I forgot. My bad. I'm only human. Hopefully somebody kept the receipts. Speaking of which, go check out the merch. Like I said down below, this show is also brought to you by Fantasy Receipts. They are a new sponsor of the show. Really fun account on Twitter that, just basically post L's. We all take them. The difference is not everybody wins and not everybody can accept an L. So they're a pretty cool account, pretty funny account. Keeping people honest out here. So I'm repping the new hoodie. Y'all should check that out. Also, we got the possum shirts over here. But the reason I wanted to play that early and let you guys know, we're going to look at the index today in this show for a couple of players and specifically, because I want to really let you get an idea of what it looks like in there, how it's useful and how it's even helped me in this back end, linebacker 2 area, change some of my opinions. On the last show, I said I'm probably completely out on Bobby Okereke. Bold statement, right? You know me. But as I went digging through, I did my due diligence. I was like, look, he's not my top 24, but I'm going to look it over one more time and kind of get a feel for things and maybe to see if some of my biases is making me forget some of the real data, the real information. So I opened up his production profile and I mean, he ain't bad. He has some things going for him, so he might have found a way to sneak his way onto my top 24 here. So I just want to let y'all know, like, this thing is a real meaningful piece of my process, and it can be a part of yours, and it can be free. All you got to do is go on the Sleeper app, who uses IDP 123 scoring, which you can find that here on the channel as well, as their default scoring system for all things IDP. They've been rocking with us. So, use our code POSSUM, get the index for free. You're going to see some of it here coming up. We'll see. Any other things I want to talk about before we really, really dive into it? Not really. Just, the content's going to keep flowing. Make sure you hop in the Discord. Make sure you thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and get into what we really want to talk about. Let's talk about these linebackers, okay? Some of these players are guys that have a really good shot, in my opinion, to be linebacker ones at the end of the season. Just a little less confident in that projection. So that's why they end up in this linebacker 2 area. So we'll go ahead and start with a player who I've been into him for a long time. You guys have, I've lost leagues because of him, and I've won leagues because of him. And I think a lot of people are going to win leagues this year because of him. So let's just go ahead and hop into it. I'm talking about Quincy Williams, all right, linebacker for the New York Jets. Like I said, he had an incredible season each of the last 2 years, but you can go even further back in his career and see he's been really getting it done for fantasy managers. Points per snap in 2021, 0.27. Points per snap last year with the Jets, 0.29. And he was playing, plenty of defensive snaps too. It wasn't like he was like necessarily rotating in and out a whole lot. He was out there fairly consistently, and he was getting quite a bit done, and the defensive play rate is interesting here, 16%, 15%. I kind of assumed that might be a little bit higher, but it's not quite as high as I kind of thought it would be. Other than that, though, the tackle rate is not something that's unsustainable, 12%, 13% respectively. You can maintain that year over year. Actually, I want to look at his raw numbers here real fast. I'm trying to find him. CJ Mosley, New York Jets. Yeah, I thought about putting the raw data on here, but I wanted to put some of the clips from the index into this. And these are some of the advanced stats that only, I hand curated essentially. So let's see here. And yeah, anybody who's, watching this on the anybody who's watching this on the stream, throw any questions in there. This is streaming into the Discord group. Just, as a heads up and a little nod to the folks in there in the community over there. All right, Quincy Williams, 15-game starter. Let's see here. Impact plays. Only one pass deflection last season. Maybe that's why it's, I figured he'd have more. He had 5 the year before that in 2021. Should pull up the raw numbers on him. But I really like Quincy Williams, and the thing I like about him is he's continued to overcome essentially. Every season he kind of fades. People don't want to talk about him because he was a very low drafted player. I think he played at Murray State, or not Murray. Maybe it was Murray. It's wherever John Morant was from, I'm pretty sure. RIP. But loving me some Quincy Williams this year. Impact play rate 2%. That stayed pretty high, and that's probably why, even though his defensive play rate is not super high, his points per snap stayed high. And I can kind of reverse engineer that here. He had 5 sacks in the last 2 seasons. That's really good for a linebacker, while also putting up over 100 tackles each season. So I'm loving Quincy Williams. I love that Robert Saleh and the guys that are really committed to him and his brother. And I really like what this this whole Jets aura is this season. So Quincy Williams, you can see here, beast mode. Next player on the list, this is going to be our linebacker, 13 for the season. I have Tremaine Edmonds. I've traditionally or historically been more out on Tremaine Edmonds than a lot of people. That's just because in the past, his points per snap, the thing that I look at first and foremost, has never really been that high. 2021, you can see here is 0.24. But this last season, it went up and it crossed into near that elite threshold of 0.28. So there's a couple of things I like about this whole situation. One, he's trending up for the first time in a while. Since his rookie season, he really kind of showed the ability to be a linebacker one for IDP. But the other thing that I love about this is he goes to fill in where Roquan Smith used to be on the Chicago Bears. That has traditionally and historically been an extremely productive linebacker spot, no matter who's been playing it. All right. So with that as a known, or an assume it's a known, and with the ascension of Tremaine Edmonds and, all the reports coming out, I actually watched a video yesterday from Bears camp. Jack Sanborn was talking, and he spent a little time, emphasizing, Tremaine Edmonds and how he's the leader of this defense, and everybody kind of knows it. He's vocal and he's that guy. And I think just it's kind of a perfect storm for him to have a great season. So still a linebacker 2 for me this season right now. You can see here at 13, but I do have a lot of belief, this season, where in the past I have not. So let's move on to his old teammate, Matt Milano. Now, I did notice that his tackle prop, betting prop right now is extremely low. So if anybody out there wants to go, I don't have like a line to drop or like a code to drop to go play this or whatever. But I looked at it the other day because I just like, keeping an eye out. And it's really low. It's like 90, 95, something like that. And I don't think that that's a terrible line, but I think he can beat it pretty easily. And why do I say that? I mean, his tackle rate, you can see here, 9% 2 years ago, 10%, 10.5% this year. He's not traditionally a heavy tackle guy, and that's probably why they feel comfortable making the line as is. Only 99 tackles this last season, and only one season over 100 tackles. But I think that the fact that Tremaine Edmonds has made his exit makes this kind of a line that they probably feel safe putting out there. And I think this defense could change how it plays football. So I think there's some upside there if you want to take that bet. In the meantime, all that aside, 0.29 points per snap. So from a pure IDP standpoint, he had a really good season, right on the edge of that elite number, not just a theoretical sort of PFF grade, like where he's good at football, but he had a good jump, even larger than Tremaine Edmonds. Again, interesting. Traditionally, Tremaine Edmonds had been down 0.24, Matt Milano 0.24 as well in 2021. Both took a significant jump this last season. So something's a little different on that defense for both those linebacker spots. So my thing is to always, remember what was isn't always what's going to be. So I think Matt Milano poses a little more upside in the tackle department, especially with a low tackle rate, super high impact play rate. So even if his impact play rate came down to like half of that, that's almost 2%. That's still really good. So there's a lot of upside for Matt Milano this season. Love him as a linebacker too. That's where I've got him ranked right now, coming in as our linebacker, I believe 13 or 13, no, 14, 15. This is 15. I should have put numbers on these slides. All right, Divine Diablo. I love Divine Diablo this season because he's in a nebulous situation right now. The Raiders are kind of hard to look at. They're kind of an ugly team. I think we can admit that. But Divine Diablo, going back 2 seasons, proved himself to be a guy who likes to play football. That's the kind of the easiest way to define him. He's like a Tyrann Mathieu type or a Budda Baker type, where he just, he comes hard every time. And some, these numbers in 2021, although unsustainable, are really, really good. 20% tackle rate, 0.39 points per snap. I don't think anybody's going to expect or anticipate that again, but it did give you a peak, and that was on a limited snap situation as well. Let me see if I can pull up what his actual snap total was here real quick. I should have had this pulled up earlier. There he is. In 2021, he only played 296 snaps. So the sample size there was not, obviously that would have come down a little bit, but over a full season, a slightly more full season, not full season, but 468 snaps in 2022. Those numbers still stayed pretty high, 0.25 for a linebacker. And he did have the DB tag there for a while on Sleeper. It doesn't anymore, unfortunately. But that made him really, really nice. But I think there's a room for him to grow here. They have Robert Spillane. I think Denzel Perryman's still kicking around there, but my money as the guy who's going to emerge as the alpha linebacker. Not to say there won't be somebody else that's playable, but the alpha linebacker, I think it's going to be Divine Diablo here. So I've got him safely tucked away still into the top end of my linebacker twos. Fred Werner, my a player that a lot of people know that I in IDP, he's been touted for a while as for a long time, he was like, everyone thought he was like a top 3 linebacker for IDP, which I thought was insane. Where people are a little more reasonable now, given his consistent sort of plateau where he's at. But that's still a really good spot, 0.27 points per snap, 0.27 points per snap. Impact play rate staying over 1 or 1.5%, totally reasonable, completely reasonable. And the tackle rate, again, not going super, super crazy. The thing is, people think that he gets a lot more tackles than he does. And I actually saw somebody tweet something out. It might have been Benjamin Solak, I think might have been it from the Draft Network. But, Madden put out their ratings in the tackling. They said, who's like the best tackler or whatever you want to call it. And they didn't have Fred Werner up there. And he was like, oh, you left Fred Werner off the list. He's the best linebacker in football. I was like, yeah, but that's the whole thing. Like, everybody defaults to saying that. But what were the parameters? The best tackling linebacker. He has more missed tackles than Roquan Smith and a lot of guys on the list, lower overall tackle numbers than them. So I was just like, if you have to compare apples to apples. You can't take his PFF grade into a tackling scenario. So, and again, for fantasy football, you have to consider that too. Rarely finishes as a linebacker 1 on a week. Usually gets his finish on the season by, just being consistently out there. But it's the consistency. He's a high-end linebacker too. He could push into that linebacker 1 area. And that's kind of how I view Fred Werner and have for a while. And I'm sure I'll get some, pushback on that. I always do, but yeah, everybody can't be a linebacker 1. Xavien Collins making his way up here. So this is kind of this is probably one of my first, I won't say flag plant kind of guys, but maybe like a breakout potential here. And that's Xavien Collins. Safely tucked away into a linebacker 2 ranking for me. Tackle rate, a little like Matt Milano's, a little lower, but the impact play rate, is touching that 2%. So they like to have him rush the passer. He likes to get behind the line of scrimmage. They did talk about lining him up on the edge a little bit more as well. So if he's going in and out of a high equity situation, rushing the passer on 3rd downs, maybe, while also getting to play, straight middle linebacker the first 2 downs, you could see a situation where he turns into something that you want on your fantasy team. So I have him ranked pretty aggressively. That coupled with the fact that I anticipate the Cardinals to be a shit show, as they have been and as they will continue to be. So yeah, Xavien Collins pretty high here. His points per snap, like I said, are not what I would traditionally be loving to see for a guy ranked this high. This is more a bet on the ascension of the player as we go into, I think this is year 3 for him. So I think we're going to get to the point where I'll pull up the index too. We're about 20 minutes in. We'll cover Ernest Jones here. So I got Ernest Jones here coming in as my linebacker. I think this is 19, right? 12 plus 7, that's 19. Rams linebacker, similar situation to Xavien Collins, but a little different in some different ways. One, he's already kind of ascended into that higher threshold of floor for a linebacker, but he also, this is kind of just putting a chip on the fact that the Rams defense just doesn't have anybody else really I even trust, you know what I mean, at any position for IDP besides Ernest Jones. So I'm kind of just like doubling and tripling down on wanting to get him right now. I don't want to overpay, but I think that you're going to be really happy with what he can do. 15 or almost 16% tackle rate last season, 14% the year before, and then his impact play rate not great in 2022, right around 1, but close to 2 in 2021. So you can see if you average that out, it can be he can be a multi-dimensional, multifaceted player. He can get you points with the tackles, and he can make some of these bigger plays. Now I'm trying to pull him up. Here he is. I'm going to go ahead and switch up our view here so you all can see into the index. So let's see here. All right. This should be a little bit better view. So this is Ernest Jones's profile in the index. You can see his age and all that. Well, let's go down here. 2022 Ernest Jones, total tackles 114 on that's at 723 snaps. Again, that's kind of where we got that good tackle rate number from this last season. Impact plays kind of low, only 8 this last season, but 4 of them were tackles for loss. Very high equity play, 2 passes defended and an interception. And I would almost rather see, especially on 700 snaps, I'd rather see this number, like 8, than 15, because I feel like that would get us a little too hyped up. Again, there's nothing about this production profile here for Ernest Jones that looks unsustainable. It actually looks like it has plenty of room for growth. So let's go down to his 2021 profile. And again, if you guys want to get into the Ultimate IDP Index for free, there's probably over 1,000 of these production profiles in there now if you did the math out. But this is how I do all my research. It's all hand curated. You can get it for free. Just go deposit first time on Underdog using code POSSUM or the link in the description. And then here, again, 8 impact plays, 444 snaps, so a little bit higher rate. This was the almost 2% year. You can see over here, very colorful. We got a couple interceptions in there. And a little easier for these to stand out just because the overall number of plays is down. Tackles are a little lower. Almost 50%, 54% solo tackles. Let's scroll up. See, it came up about 64%. But again, neither of these are unsustainable. So I like Ernest Jones this next year for IDP. Let me pull this back down to where we were at. So there's a little peek into the index. Let's move on to Bobby ORourke. Love me some Bobby ORourke now. I'm a huge Bobby ORourke guy, guys. But you'll see here, it's you can quickly see it's not hard to tell kind of why I went here. Again, he has a very sustainable bread and butter sort of profile, tackle rate hovering between 15 and 12 points per snap. Did come up a decent bit, and now he goes to a team where, not that on the Colts, he was kind of in limbo as like he's playing because they got rid of Anthony Walker, and we can't really rely on or don't really know what's going on with Darius Leonard / he's injured. So ORourke has gotten some playtime the last couple of years. And it was good enough, filling in for Walker, or not Walker. Well, I guess he did fill in for Walker when Leonard wasn't out there. That the New York Giants, went out and paid him a decent bit of money and brought him in to kind of shore up a position that's been an issue for them for a while. And they had Jalen Smith on the team last year, middle linebacker. They had a McFadden fella, who was Blake Martinez, one of my favorite linebackers for a minute, Pokemon card extraordinaire. But Bobby ORourke now comes in. His prop numbers at Vegas line is very high. They expect him to continue to ascend. So I did end up putting him here into my top 24 linebackers, and I think that's, again, I can change my opinion based on what I see. And when I looked at his points per snap this last year, 0.29, you really can't hold anything against him there. Josie Jewell comes in next for me. kind of been on the scene for a while for IDP fantasy football managers. A dynasty, I wouldn't say darling, but maybe because you've been able to back in the day, you picked him up for free. He was like a practice squad guy, not really getting a lot of love, kind of in and out of the lineup, but he's been kind of like similar to Quincy Williams. He's actually secured his name in the conversation, and he's done that through, making the right plays. And here I'm going to go ahead and switch out our viewpoint again so that you can take a look in index at my man's. All right, let's see if we can scroll down to Mr. Josie Jewell. I believe he's at the bottom of tier 3 right now. And this is the index, little peek behind. Oh, maybe he's in tier 4. There he is. So, Josie Jewell, 28 years old. So let's take a little peek here. His 2022 profile. First thing I notice, is this last season, points per snap, really high, 0.32. Impact play rate, really high, 236. 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections, 128 tackles. I mean, he really took off in 2022. Let's look back a year before that. Looks like he had 82 snaps played. Still points per snap very high. I wonder, this had to be because of injury. I could look back at his history at some point. Yeah, here we go. So a couple of years back, this is the last time he really played a decent number of snaps. So let me scroll up here. So right below me here, you can see he played 1,000 snaps, a little over 1,000 snaps, only 113 tackles. And his points per snap, you can see bottom left there, 0.22. So when he's played in the past, he has been a little bit less of a factor. He was really just like a linebacker 2. No, he was really more like a volume linebacker 3, this season. This season here, really didn't get much out of him, 82 snaps. And then last year, he really took off. So I have him safely nestled here into my linebacker 2s. A high-end linebacker 2 for Josie Jewell. Shout out to Bomber. I'm sure he'll love to hear that. Maybe he won't. I don't know. Bomber, do you love or do you hate Josie Jewell? We got to know. So I need to use this layout more. This is nice. Nice. All right, let's go back. Let's pull. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back here. Go back here. Boom, boom, boom. All right. We're going to finish these top 24 linebackers out. I got Zier Franklin here. Essentially, I don't have a production profile on him, or I have one in the index, but I haven't created that actual screen that we just showed there. It's on the to-do list. But he's one of the players that he's going to take over and basically essentially be the new Bobby Okereke, who is the new Darius Leonard. You'll notice, and actually this is probably a good time to take a second here. You'll notice Jordan Brooks not on this list. You'll notice Darius Leonard not on my list at all. I don't know, without knowing if they're even practicing, if they're not practicing, I'm not going to rank them in my top 24. I have them on some teams. I've got them in some starting lineups right now. I'm looking at them, but for your all's sake, it's not something that I would want you all to take a risk on putting guys like that on your teams this year. Until we hear positive things, neither of them are going to be safe drafts, in my opinion, this year. But Zier Franklin is going to be a great stand-in for either of those players if you had them and lost them. Let me see if I can pull up his raw numbers real quick here on Pro Football Reference, just to give you an idea of kind of like the production that he did do last season. All 17 games, 167 tackles. Okay, 12 tackles for loss, 6 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 sacks. So he kind of is like that disruptor, like a Darius Leonard. And now he's going to get to be the main guy there. Now Bobby Okereke moves on, and if Darius Leonard again is not going to come out, Zier Franklin could be. I probably have him ranked a little too low, maybe, probably. But we'll see. I just wonder about the pace of play, and 167 tackles kind of out of nowhere for Zier Franklin as well. Been in the league since 2018. Never had over 40 tackles before. So I don't want to rocket him up into my top 5 linebackers for 2023 IDP fantasy football. But I do want to have him in my rankings here. Early on, I was a little, I don't know. I was a little hesitant to even, again, I don't like investing in super nebulous situations in positions where I need real security, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like if I was going to put someone like that on my bench a couple of months ago, Zier Franklin, I probably would have felt a little bit more comfortable. But now I'm feeling a little more comfortable with him as a guy I could probably start every week. Pete Werner really was going through a breakout last season before he got injured. You hated to see it. Saints fans hated to see it. I hated to see it. But we expect him to come back stronger than ever this season. Let me see if I can get his production profile up here in the index. This one. All right. So Pete Werner, my guy. And just to kind of give you all an idea, I mean, if he was a top 12 linebacker multiple times early in the season last year. All right, let's take a look here. Only played 600 snaps, a lot of tackles, very tackle heavy, which is fine. That leaves room for big plays, in my opinion. 0.26 points per snap, you can see there for Pete Werner. Well, I like this view a little better. This is nice. 80 tackles, yeah. So he was trending for a big tackle season, something that a lot of people kind of hold against Mario Davis. Not a big tackle guy. But, he gets his sacks. He isn't on this list either. Sorry, DeMario. I ranked you at 25. I probably did. All right, let's go on to our next player. Whoop. And again, all these guys are in the Ultimate IDP Index, y'all, and you can get it for free. Go in there. It's tiered rankings. It's production profiles. It's contracts for all of these guys, except Zier Franklin yet. But everyone else, yes. And hop in the Discord, ask questions. We'd love to get you a trophy. Love to get you a big dub this season in fantasy football IDP. Last guy on the top 24 linebackers is Shaq Thompson. Really had a great season last year. Kind of went under the radar. Honestly, I feel like not enough people noticed it. But that's because nobody wanted to look at what was going on with the Carolina Panthers. I still don't want to look at it, honestly. I think people are a little too overconfident in the overall situation. But that allows us to get a player like Shaq Thompson at a heavily discounted rate in fantasy football. And now, for whatever reason, there he is. So let's take a little peek here into the index. 1,090 snaps, 0.23 points per snap, 135 tackles, 4 pass deflections, 8 tackles for a loss, fumble recovery, half of a sack. Not a bad season for him. And again, it really comes down to the overall number of snaps. He got back up over 1,000 this year, was under 1,000 2 seasons ago. And we've seen in the past, let me see if I can share this with you all. We've seen in the past with his production profile here, this is 2020, a little more colorful here. 5 pass deflections, tackles for loss, still steady. You go up to 2021, fewer snaps, but 2 interceptions. Again, the pass deflections stayed pretty high. So he's been an impact player in the past. 18 impact plays this season, 14 2 years ago. This year, 13.5, and I think that can come up. So I like Shaq Thompson this year, and I like him to be on the field again, plenty. Well over 1,000 snaps, and with a little bit of upside that maybe goes unacknowledged. Again, because we don't really want to look at the Panthers, or I don't. Maybe somebody does. Maybe people actually believe the young quarterback there is going to get the job done. I'm not one of those people. So let's talk about a handful of other IDP players before we get out of here, or linebackers. Some players that didn't make it onto the list. Got them up here on my board. Jack Campbell, for instance, rookie, playing for Detroit this year. I do believe he could be somebody that could push into the top 24. TJ Edwards, another linebacker for the Bears that I did not bring up. I have a lot of faith in him. Jack Sanborn was saying a lot of positive things about him as well. So keep an eye on TJ Edwards. Isaiah Simmons was not on this list. I'll probably, as far as I know, he still should have, I think he has defensive back eligibility now on Sleeper, which is going to make me probably default to putting him on that list. But the other player for Arizona I wanted to bring up was Kazir White, has sneakily ended up on Arizona as an off-ball linebacker. Keep an eye on him. Again, we brought him up, I think, last year or 2 years ago on the Sleeper Show, which I'm working on the Sleeper shows right now. But he might end up being a sleeper again because he just kind of snuck onto that team. Again, it's one of those things where you just want to look away from some of these crappy teams, and you don't realize, oh, they got a good player over there. Some guys are trying to sneak off a team like Buda Baker, who got paid. Well, he got what he wanted. And some guys just kind of sneak onto a team. So other players who did not make this list that I think could be very fantasy relevant for linebackers. And I mean, I'm not just trying to necessarily cover my bases, but the linebacker curve is pretty flat. So if you don't have one of the super top guys, the linebacker 2 area can really extrapolate out a while. Drew Tranquil, linebacker 2 for Kansas City, is a guy that you should keep an eye on / definitely be rostering. Anthony Walker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, put a pin in his name. Jamin Davis, put a pin in his name. Devin Lloyd, playing across from or with Foyesade Olakun in Jacksonville, another player to keep an eye on. And a player who's been getting some hype on Twitter the last 24 or 48 hours, and rightly so, is Troy Anderson for the Atlanta Falcons. He basically had a route. Bijan Robinson was running a route on him, and he was trying to cover him, and he knocked the ball down. I mean, he hung with him pretty well. I thought his hips looked good. I thought he held for Bijan being drafted as high as he was, he proficient pass catcher and all that, he hung with him. And if he can hang with a guy who's supposed to be that good at the linebacker position, and that guy's on his team and he gets to practice against him, it could be wheels up for Troy Anderson. So another player to keep an eye on. And then Michael Walker also there. Good season last year. But it was Troy Anderson who's kind of caught the attention of the media world because he's a darling. So I think that's about it, y'all. No more. I did have one other thing. So I'm just going to do a quick kind of mailbag, but I was on the Reddit, FFIDP Reddit, and I saw somebody put a poll up. So I just thought I would go over it real quick, just kind of share my thoughts here. So this poll was put up by wrong_bag_99. Or no, it wasn't. That's not who put it up. That's the guy above him. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's who put it up. The trade is Tyler Lockett and Aaron Donald or Max Crosby. I voted for Max Crosby. Right now, it's almost 50-50. It's 26 votes for Max Crosby, 21 votes for Tyler Lockett and Aaron Donald. I think that this should be much heavier towards Max Crosby personally, and here's why. Max Crosby is still getting better. His career is really just getting started. He's just getting that wind in his sails. Whereas guys like Tyler Lockett and Aaron Donald, this is their swan song type of area where they're at right now. Let's be realistic. Time horizon alone should show you that. Team situations, are great for Tyler Lockett, not so good for Aaron Donald. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So from a fantasy perspective, 2 years from now, Tyler Lockett and Aaron Donald could both be out of the NFL, retired. 2 years from now, Max Crosby could be winning a Defensive Player of the Year, leading the league in sacks, and still being a couple years under 30 years old. So, it's a dynasty question. It has to be, and to me, it's you want to get rid of aging assets, and this is how you do it. So go get Max Crosby. I was kind of shocked that so many people were actually interested in Aaron Donald and Tyler Lockett because I don't know who you're going to be playing in your Max Crosby spot, but if it's Aaron Donald, you're not going to get the same kind of production, and especially not going to get the same kind of, again, it's a linear game. Who's been in the league longer, who's closer to the end of their career. So in Dynasty, Max Crosby's been ascending. If you've got him, keep him. You know what I mean? And if you're going to trade him away, don't trade him away for 2 older players, whose best years are behind them. And that's another thing, just quickly, I'll point out, and I say this a lot to people, I'm a basic B, and something as simple as time horizon, something as simple as, is this player ever going to have a year better than year X? And if I think they will, that's more meaningful than getting a player on your team who best season is behind them. So any ceiling that you may perceive isn't really their ceiling anymore. So what do I mean by that? Like a Doug Baldwin type. People thought he was going to be so good when he had like a 1,100-yard season when he was like 29, and I was like, that's like you fall off eventually. You just stop having good seasons, and you want to get out ahead of that. You can't just keep banking on that, and it happens fast. So get out of the old player business, get into the young hotness business, and not the super young hotness business. Okay, not the rookie. I mean, I try to stay away from rookies. I mean, you should see some of these drafts that I be doing, rookie drafts. I mean, Lord knows why I trade away all my rookie picks anymore, because there are some messes out there. And don't you be worrying. My people be sending me the tweet. They be sending me the screenshots. They be reminding me of who I be. And people really be trying to tell me who I be out here. Speaking of which, go get a Fantasy Receipts hoodie. They're down in the comments description. Support good fantasy football content and content creators. All right. That's it from me to you, IDP Army, all fantasy football folks. Listen, we will continue the ranking show through. We'll be doing defensive line. We'll be doing defensive backs for the IDP rankings. Those shows will come out in the next week or two. We're going to keep doing the best ball stuff. We're going to keep doing the sleeper picks stuff. Make sure you are following along on the Twitter sphere. Link in the description below. Like I said, you can get the ultimate IDP index for free. It's never been done before. It's never been thought of. The world is changing. Go get the ultimate IDP index. Support the brand. Win a league this season. And yeah, that's it for me to you. Later, y'all. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and super thanks are always appreciated.